Where's your office going to be? My kitchen table. You're going to have clients come to your freaking kitchen table? No, I'll go to their offices. Okay. But what about where are you going to get the capital to hire an account manager or a customer service rep? I'm going to do all that. And as soon as I get enough clients, I'm going to pay people from those clients' revenue to do it.
For most entrepreneurs, when they imagine that their company was sold, they're like just celebrating all the time, buying new cars, and that's it. They're free.
I accepted all this money. We made a deal. I work for them now for 5 years, which that part sucked.
So this is our third episode of the Ukrainian CEO podcast. And in today's show, we have the third guest from Chicago. His name is John Cerasani, entrepreneur who grew and sold his insurance company and then started a venture capital firm. And today he will tell us about that. Hello, John, and thank you for coming.
I'm happy to be here, and prayers going out to all of the Ukrainians in this time. I got to tell you, Volo, I usually don't do podcasts like this, not newer ones at least. You know, when I saw that you were in Ukraine, I didn't want to do it. So greetings, everybody.
Okay, John, thank you for your support and for coming. And to start, can you please tell a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I had an insurance company that I started from my kitchen table. I had worked for a big corporation prior to that and just decided, you know what, I could do this better than the company I'm working for. And the company I worked at was $1 billion organization. They were the third biggest in the world at what they did and 30,000 employees and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what, though? At the end of the day, the other 29,999 employees aren't really doing anything on these accounts. I'm the one doing it. I am the product. It's my human capital and my resources that are being sold. So why don't I stop sitting around waiting to get a 5%, or if I'm lucky, a 10% raise from one year to the next, and give myself a 2,000% raise and work for myself, put myself on the top of the org chart and build equity into my future instead of making somebody else rich. And that's what my podcast and what my book is all about. It's 2,000% raise.
I love the path you've taken. You landed the job in a promising industry, got the knowledge, the experience, and then just use that to start your own venture in the same space. You know the client, what they want, and it's extremely smart. Also, can you just give us like exact steps, if you remember, you were making to accomplish that transition? How did you determine that was the right time to start your own business? Was it like a client who was ready to pay, or maybe you found an investor or a partner offering you seed funding? What was your exact first steps? Like, did you start an LLC, find the partner? What were your steps?
No, I didn't have any partners or LLCs or anything like that. I started it off myself. Eventually, I started the LLC when I started the company. But it's very strict in America. A lot of companies that are in competitive environments like this will have sales jobs that will have what's called a non-compete connected to them. Very common in America. So that means that you can't go steal your clients. In other words, if I'm working for somebody else, I can't just like say, hey, come be my client over here now and let's leave these guys. That you would get sued, and it's also very unethical. For me, it starts off with an awareness, okay? And really, I tell people this. Everybody needs to have this awareness. Once you realize that your job in corporate America is not that important. You're just a piece of a puzzle and you can be replaced. And if you want to hold yourself to a higher standard than that, if you want to actually have control of your destiny, you need to first create this awareness that you're just a piece of a money-making puzzle. They're bribing you by giving you a salary to work there. And if you leave, you're going to be replaced. So once you have that awareness, shift your mindset to thinking about your job in corporate America as paid training. Okay, you know what? You're training me for the company I will be starting in the future, and you're going to pay me for it. Now, here's the thing. You don't know this. You're employing me. You don't know this is paid training for my future, but I know it, and that's what it is. And by the way, when I'm working here, I'll be a good employee. I'll do everything you ask of me, and you'll be happy with that. But I'm not staying here for 40 years. I'm staying here for a few till I learn everything that I need. Then I'm going to be an entrepreneur and start my own company.
By the way, how were you feeling like when you started the company and someone new comes to you for an internship? And did you suspect that everyone, they will work in your company and then start their own?
That is what I call the corporate conundrum. If you have a person working for you and they have that same desire that you have, you might run into an issue there with them eventually leaving you too. And I got to tell you, that's typically with salespeople. I've been able to bypass that because I never really hired a sales force. What I did was took more of a global marketing staff, and I worked all the leads and the sales. Now, we became a pretty big company, but I developed a niche working with college and university clients in the corporate insurance space. Nobody else was really doing that. Because of that niche, there was no need for cold calls. Eventually, they started just coming to us from word of mouth. So I got to tell you, Volo, it was a balancing act, man. I always said, okay, let me get outside of this niche. I'm going to hire these salespeople, and I'm going to pay them a 30% or 40% commission on what they bring in. And then I'm going to have to hire these resources around them to make them feel important. All for what? For them to eventually leave me to go start their own company if they're good. And if they're not good, okay, you know what? Forget that. I'm going to focus just on my niche and being the best in that space. And that's exactly what I did. I would hire support people around me that could assist in that. And usually when people are in the more of the account management types of roles, they're not, I shouldn't say they're not motivated by money, but they just might look at themselves a little bit differently. Okay. Because when you're in an account management role, you're really playing a support position, and you don't necessarily need or want to be that person to run the show. And you don't know if you have the skill set to, because the hardest thing for an entrepreneur is bringing in the business. So if you've been an account manager working for someone else and you're the best account manager that's ever existed, good for you. But if you don't have the ability to bring in the clients, there's no accounts to manage.
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. So you basically found a blue ocean, call it product market fit, where you position yourself, you exclusively serving colleges. You had just, as you said, queue of customers. You didn't have to make calls. But can you please go a bit deeper into that topic? Like, how did you pick that niche? Was it like in your previous company, you saw the opportunity, or who told you like you should focus on universities?
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that, because no one's really asked me that before. You're absolutely right. Okay, first of all, I needed the niche in order to compete against billion-dollar organizations that I was going to be going up against. It gave me a competitive edge that kind of evened the playing field a little bit. Now, a lot of times, some clients would want the big established company that's been around for 100 years, and so be it. That would happen from time to time. But if that wasn't an issue, I would have had every single college in the country as a client, and even have done better off. But what I learned at the company I was working at previously, all right, we worked on these big universities there, the state universities that had 20,000, 30,000, students, 100,000 students, and a few thousand employees. And, we'd work on those accounts, but other people in the office were not, focusing on just that niche. And they'd be working on manufacturing companies and maybe car dealerships and maybe factories that have 400 employees. Well, why are we working just with colleges that have a few thousand employees if I'm in the same sales meeting as these other guys and they're getting high fives for selling accounts that are, only 400 employees, because we were selling employee benefits so from an insurance standpoint, that's a good sized account. So I start thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, let me shift downhill. Let me start going after the small colleges, the smaller institutions that are private and not state universities. All right. Those guys, they only have a few hundred employees. Gosh, we have a great value proposition that we could bring to them with this higher education focus. Well, my bosses were like, no, you know what, John, you're so talented. You got to keep going after these big ones. And I go, okay, that's fine. But let me put a team together to go after the little ones, because they're worth just as much money as these 400 employee factories. You guys realize that, right? Bolo. They didn't want to do it. And, when you're a billion-dollar organization, sometimes you got people just drinking out of fire hoses. You know what I mean? There's so many different fire hoses being sprayed, and management and upper management doesn't have the time for it. And I'm sitting here looking at this like, well, shit. You're only paying me $140,000 to work here. I brought in close to $1 million worth of revenue last year. I don't think it was really because I worked here with your name on the business card. I'm pretty much doing everything. And now you're not even listening to my 27-year-old ass because you guys are all in your 50s. You think my idea is stupid? Okay. So from there on out, I kind of just removed myself from the equation and started interviewing with other organizations. Where could I get a job? Now, I wasn't telling them about my idea with the smaller colleges. I wasn't going that far. But I was sought after. There was, competitors that were more than happy to make me very good job offers with a higher salary guarantee. And I almost took one. And I didn't, like, we got to the 11th hour and I just decided, you know what? After about 5 years of working here, I'm going to have the same damn conundrum that I'm having right now at Arthur J. Gallagher where I work. I'm going to think I'm underpaid because they're giving me this upfront money. They're saying, okay, we're going to give you this salary guarantee over the next 3 years. Even though you haven't earned it, we're going to give you this. Okay, well, over time, they're going to want me to bring in enough revenue to justify that guarantee. All right, but how about years 4 and 5? I'm going to feel like I'm underpaid. I'm going to know that it didn't matter. I just took this bribe of a salary guarantee. That's all I got out of this deal. I'm only 27 years old. So for the next 30 years after they win, I just won on the first 3 years of the salary guarantee. Why would I do this? And then that's kind of when the light bulb went off. You know what, man? I got this great idea with small colleges. I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody. So complicated. It's going to be so hard to start your own insurance company. Where's your office going to be? My kitchen table. So you're gonna have clients come to your freaking kitchen table? No, I'll go to their offices. Okay. But what about where are you going to get the capital to hire an account manager or a customer service rep? I'm going to do all that. And as soon as I get enough clients, I'm going to pay people from those clients' revenue to do it. Okay, well then who's going to be an investor? Who's going to raise capital? How are you going to raise capital? Well, I just explained. I don't need capital. I'm doing this from my house that I already own. And I'm going to be the person that does everything. Impossible. No one's going to work with you. Who are they going to work with? John Cerasani Insurance? Nah, I'm going to name it Northwest Comprehensive. Well, what the F does that mean? Exactly. But it sounds like a big company, doesn't it? And then you're going to say, okay, I'm the president of John Cerasani Insurance. No, I'm going to say I'm a consultant that works for John Cerasani Insurance, or I'm a seasoned salesperson that works for John Cerasani Insurance. They don't need to know that I own the company. They don't need to know that I'm a president. And by the time they figure it out, they're going to be so happy with my service that they don't care either. That's exactly how the whole thing unfolded. And by the time I hit year 2 or year 3, just went to the moon as far as revenue is concerned.
That's an interesting story. And what I see many entrepreneurs are facing, like when the past similar to yours,
yep.
That, if they pursue like something that wasn't tested before, like no one did that before,
yep.
There is a risk that, for example, you created a value proposition, you presented to the audience, to small universities, and
yep.
They don't have that need. Maybe big colleges, they really need to work with big insurance company, but smaller, maybe they need just consultants. There were a space for a failure. And I just wanted to ask you, how did you define the value propositions for those universities? And also, I was listening to one of your episodes and you described your approach where aimed to make a deal. You were calling the representative of college and calling them out to eat. And also,
yep.
like for a free steak, and they were coming with for a meeting, and you were. What was your process?
So the thing for me is I knew that early on I wasn't going to have the credibility with potential clients that my other competitors, especially when you're calling on colleges. They know who all the big players are. They know the names of everybody. I knew that if I just emailed them or if I just wrote a letter, maybe it was going to be hit or miss. Maybe they'll meet with me. Okay, who knows? All right. I had to follow up was key because I knew once I was able to get face to face with these people and they were actually able to hear me talk and hear me explain what it is we do, they were going to see value in that. Now, not 100% of them, maybe not, but I'm going to be much better off if I'm able to get in front of them. Now, some of these people were just simply not in the market, Volo. They didn't care. They weren't interested in meeting because they were very happy with what their current situation is. But a lot of times in insurance, people just don't change it. You go years, decades without really having a third party review what you're doing because you have such a close relationship with your current provider. You don't mess with it. So I needed to change that. And I needed to kind of, crack that barrier. And I knew it was a numbers game. So the more people I called, the more people as a result would agree to meet with me. And the more people that agree to meet with me would eventually become clients. And it started off with those damn phone calls. Now, how do you go from a phone call to getting them to agree to meet with you? It's an art because you don't want to come across as too salesy or aggressive. I would go see a client, say 3 hours away, and I'd stop I'd look on a map and say, okay, there's these colleges are on the way there. And I'd call them. And I'd name drop the college that's already a client that I'm going to see. Hey, I'm going to see XYZ University. I'm coming from Chicago. Hey, you're right on the path here as I'm looking at this map here, Dan. And how about I just stop in and tell you a little bit about ourselves? Oh, I don't know. Hey, man, I'm going to be there at lunchtime. You do got to eat, right? Well, I'm busy. But you do eat, though, Dan, right? Well, let me buy you lunch. Come on, man. Called you 10 times in the last year. Let's make this the time. All right, fine. I'll meet with you. You know what I mean? So sometimes it could go like that, or it might go click, hang up, not interested, hang up. And it's those hang ups that you really got to have the tough skin. Now, luckily, me calling on universities, there wasn't a lot of rude people or hang ups, because after my second or third year of doing this, they realized that I'm out there in this space, and these guys all kind of talk to each other. So once they realized I was kind of like a player that's out there, I'm at their conferences, I'm at trade shows, no one was going to be like rude, you know what I mean? But they'd politely say no, just the same, let's say.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And we lack this in Ukraine, this like wolf from the Wall Street approach, where you just reach out to people and try to be valuable for them and try to close them. We lack that, fortunately, in Ukraine.
Okay.
But I think we have potential, and we will learn, and one day we will become as good in sales as Americans.
Well, so you got to be careful, because sometimes, like, if you start reading up on like American sales tactics, you got to be careful. There's a big difference between business to business sales versus business direct to like a customer sales. Okay, it's called B2B or B2C. B2B sales a lot of times needs to be more consultative. You need to like demonstrate a value proposition and really be much more professional. Whereas if you're selling like to an individual, like say you're a car dealer is a great example. A car salesman could be pushy. He could try to convince you using these American sales tactics, like make you feel almost like pressured to make the sale. You try to do some of those things in a business to business environment. Don't let the door hit you in the rear end. That's what they'll tell you. And then they'll never talk to you again. And they'll tell all of their peers that you're rude. So you got to really find that line.
Yeah. Value-based approach is like mostly adopted among the entrepreneurs here in Ukraine.
Okay.
There are not so many though, like pushy sales, because they just don't know how to be that pushy. And like those who are pushy, they usually like have no deals. So that's why most of the salesperson in Ukraine, they try to give some value. For example, I had a conversation with a lawyer. So he launched like a webinar, then he out to me. We had the call, and he like, okay, what problems you have? Volo. I was just, okay, I'm curious about what entity should we go for. He was lucky that I had this need. We started a conversation. He gave me a lot of value, like step-by-step plan. And then maybe even like I will become his customer, not this month, but maybe even like in half of a year. But he gave me this value. And in the long term, I think this strategy is a great one. But back to your journey, I want to talk about merge and acquisition you made, and why did you decided to sell your company, Northwest Comprehensive, to another insurance company? Why did you decide to do that? And the important aspect, what were your feelings when you were like recognizing that the next 5 years you will dedicate to the company and you will work for that company even after acquisition? Because I am not sure, but I guess like for most entrepreneurs, when they imagine that their company were sold, they're like just celebrating all the time and buying new cars, and that's it, they're free. And what was your feelings in that position?
So the reason I sold it is because I don't know if you guys have private equity in Ukraine. I mean, you do. I don't know how familiar everybody is with it though, but a private equity firm backed one of my larger competitors. And once a private equity firm gets involved, it's a group of investors behind them. They're able to make substantial moves. And they approached me to buy my company. And what they were trying to do was buy other companies like mine of similar size. And then they're going to roll us all together under the umbrella of this existing company that they were backing. It just is what it is, kind of a thing. And in that process, they need to incent people like me to sell my company to them. Now, I was making a lot of money. Why would I sell this company? It was a cash cow for me. Well, I did it because they were able to offer enough of a multiple of my profits to make it make sense. And I did that. Now, there was a catch, though. As you mentioned, you had to work there for 5 years because this is a very relationship type of a business. So they wanted to make sure in that 5-year period that they do everything to what we call institutionalize the business. And another word for institutionalize is irrelevant. I'm going to try to do everything I can over the next 5 years to make John irrelevant to these clients. And there's different forms that's going to take. It could be that, hey, John, let so-and-so work on this account. Hey, John, we need you on this committee in Boston, and we're taking this, we need you to manage these people. And every I might say yes to any of that stuff. It moves me a little bit further and further away from my clients and makes me less and less relevant to them. So that's exactly why that was there. And now I knew this was going to happen, though. This is nothing shady going on here, but it sucks as a business owner, right? Because you want to do everything now. This is the deal, though, man. I accepted all this money. We made a deal. I work for them now for 5 years, which that part sucked. Being an employee again for 5 years was that was a little bit more difficult than I had anticipated, because you get this damn, you're used to being a person that can make moves. You're thinking about now all of a sudden you got to adapt to environments that are maybe lesser than yours, maybe a culture that doesn't have the same work ethic of what you had at your company, and egos get in the way. You come part of this organization and there's only, a couple handfuls of employees I brought over, but they have hundreds. We're working our ass off well past 5 p.m., coming in every day of the week, coming into work early at 7 in the morning because we're winners. They're, if they're barely in the office or they're leaving, the office is a ghost town at 2 p.m. on a Friday, forget about it. It's like, these aren't winners. These aren't how people work their ass off. It doesn't make us champions. But over time, how do I sit here telling my employees that I brought over, keep working twice as many hours as everybody? Hey, let's keep it, eventually over time, it just deteriorates. And you become dead man walking. You're like, gosh, this sucks. I did everything I could to try to change that culture, and it sucks. So it is what it is. There's certain things I did learn from them that were positive, but it's useless information because I don't do the job anymore. So who cares?
So the summary, before making the deal, you should consider, are you ready to dedicate all this time working as employee? Also thinking about who is buying your company? Does their values match with yours? After you make this exit, you started to work as angel investor. Do you remember the first deal you make as an investor? What was that? Was it like a startup in insurance, or maybe it was a new industry for you? Can you please tell us about that?
The first one I got involved in is called OSDB, Online Sports Database. Made very good friends with one of the founders, a guy named Ryan Rotman in Los Angeles, who's become a very close friend of mine. What intrigued me to this is that one of his business partners and also founders is Aaron Rodgers, the NFL football player. Now, it's interesting. I'm in Chicago. Ryan's in LA. How do we get in touch? Well, all I did was post on LinkedIn that I'm a venture capitalist now. And you got so many people running around in this space trying to be relevant, trying to be that connector. Hey, let me introduce you to this person, and blah, blah, blah. And they serve really no purpose other than just trying to be in the conversation. And that's exactly what happened here, because I played football when I was in college, and somebody saw that Aaron Rodgers has this company, and hey, let's connect these two people. And for those of your fans that don't know, Aaron Rodgers is a very famous American football player, very famous. He's like David Beckham of American football. All right. I don't even know if Ukrainians like David Beckham, and that's probably a dated analogy now anyways, but yeah, man. So that was the first one. We have not had an exit yet. There's still a lot of work to do, but it's exciting. It's very exciting. We got cool people involved. It's a technology company that is going to be a database for everything sports related. So if you want to know any salary information, any charity information, any contractual information, anything you want to, who's your agent, who's their agent, what were their stats, and all that crap, it's all verified right on this site. And they do new content as well, which is a huge distinction as well, the original content.
You made the right analogy with David Beckham, because honestly in Ukraine, soccer is much more popular than American football.
Oh yeah.
Everyone knows the David Beckham. And also, I wanted to ask you about your investments. I expect you made the first deal you made. It was in an area where you are passionate. As I understand, you were passionate about football. That was your first investment. You worked in the industry where you know everything about that.
So I didn't go back into insurance because I already did insurance. This dominated a lot of my life. You know what I mean? So I just decided, you know what? I've given enough of my life to insurance, and quite frankly, it's not very exciting to talk about. It was quite lucrative for me. It's, gonna make sure my grandkids and grandkids' kids maybe don't have to work if they don't want to, but they will want to because we're going to keep working in our family. But it's not very exciting in our conversation. There's nothing exciting talking about the Affordable Care Act and employee benefits and employer-sponsored health plans. Nobody cares. And the people that do care are usually like old with medical conditions. Nobody wants to talk about this shit. So what I decided is I'm going to get into venture capital opportunities that are exciting. And I'll tell you right now, a freaking tech company that concentrates on sports out of Los Angeles with Aaron Rodgers as the founder. That's exciting. That sounds like more my speed. And I'm in a lot of cool shit like that. So I'm in about 30 different deals. Pretty excited about it. I'm in a hotel deal. I have used to vacation at the Newport Beach Marriott when I was a kid. I was asked to be part of the investment group that actually bought the Newport Beach Marriott, and now we reopened it as the VIA. I mean, this is some feathers in the cap kind of shit that I'm involved in. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, now you have venture capital. Like you started as an angel investor. Now it's like a team of advisors.
Yeah, I have an advisory board because people like want to be a part of my deal and just kind of be around me. But at the end of the day, it's the best term would be family office. Meaning it's all my money. We're not taking limited partners or investors. It's John Cerasani's money and making the deals. And the company's called Glencrest Global.
Yeah, so you decided to stop working in insurance. You do what you want, invest in exciting things. But is this actually a venture capital business issue for you? What are your three biggest challenges right now in your current venture?
There's a lot of challenges. I mean, the biggest one is you get these founders that are raising money and trying to figure out, especially the first-time founders, you got to figure out if you believe them. Sometimes people are running around trying to raise capital for their company, and it's like, do you even have a company? You know, people like lie. They're just full of garbage. And then even the ones that do, it's almost like reckless behavior that they think this is going to actually work. What is me giving you $150,000 actually going to accomplish? And then sure enough, a few months later, the company folded. And it's like, do you even care? Do you even care that you just lost my money, buddy? You know, the top three things are kind of navigated, are kind of all wrapped up into one answer. It's navigating the system and finding the right opportunities, trying to determine, okay, when is this company actually going to monetize for me? Usually these venture capital deals don't pay dividends. It's typically you're going in there waiting for them to have an exit, waiting for them to sell one day. And it could be years. So trying to figure out, okay, realistically, who's going to buy this company and when will that be? We'll look at a company like OSDB, Amazon, Comcast, Google, Meta, Facebook and Instagram. Are those potential buyers? Well, certainly, because we're going to have so much data. Do we know if they're going to give a shit? We have no idea. So, we shall see. So those are really the hugest challenges.
Is it time consuming for you right now to manage all this, to talk all these founders you invested in? How many hours do you spend on this venture capital firm?
I probably work about 25 hours a week right now, but that includes doing my podcast, includes kind of social media stuff that I do. I would say on the ventures themselves, really depends, maybe 10 hours a week, maybe less. Now, if an issue comes up, it could be 50 hours a week just on that. And that's the bad part when you got to get lawyers involved and people were dishonest or we didn't dot every I and cross every T in the contract. And we always get into these deals with rainbows and unicorns. This is going to be awesome. We're all going to make a bunch of money. And the person starts going sideways, decides that they're going to go get a job working for someone because it's not going their way. Hey, buddy, I invested $100,000 in you. What do you mean you're going to go get a job? What about this company we invested in? Well, my wife is getting mad at me. I don't want to work anymore. Okay, I got to get a real job and bring home income. Jeez. What the heck is wrong with people? Is this a real conversation? So I do my best to avoid stuff like that, avoid getting involved in stuff like that now. But unfortunately, because I was new at this, I am in a few deals like that, and it sucks.
Also, everyone is talking right now that the recession is coming, and they tell it become extremely difficult for startups to secure venture capital. Is your firm also investing less during this time period, or have you changed your investment approach?
Well, what happens is that most of us, or just high net worth people in general, will have their money working somewhere, okay? And, maybe it's in the stock market, maybe it's in bonds or, wherever the hell it is. Usually these brokerage accounts that you're doing that through will let you get what's called a line of credit against your portfolio. And the reason that's important is because the line of credit that you're paying out an interest on that portfolio. When it's low, it's almost like it's free money. So let's just use easy numbers. If I have $1 million invested here, I'm allowed to take 85% of it as a line of credit. I could keep that $1 million invested, take out 850 grand right here, and only pay a 1.5% interest rate. Okay. But now if I have this $1 million here, that 85% that I could take out, okay, now if it's closer to like 8 or 9%, ooh, that's a lot of pressure paying 8 or 9% on that. I don't know if I want to take that out and pay that interest rate. And additionally, what sucks about it is this position where that $1 million is, if the market's down, okay, it ain't $1 million anymore anyway. You know what I mean? So maybe that looks more like 800 grand. Now you can only take 85% of the 800 grand at a higher interest rate. And that is why money dries up. And that's why it's harder for entrepreneurs right now to raise money, because it's not available for everything I just said.
So you have less deals than, for example, previous year.
Exactly. It's not free money anymore.
Returning to the initial purpose of this podcast, we want to help Ukrainian entrepreneurs with some knowledge so that they continue working, because as you may know, because of the war and the recession, like many businesses are shutting down. What is very important, the talent is leaving the country. Can you please tell us what was the most challenging moment in your business career, if you remember that, and how have you overcame it?
Listen, man, any challenge any American has had, especially ones in the business world, are nothing like the challenges that you guys have in Ukraine right now. We watch you guys on the news every day. We're all praying for you guys. Anything that I could tell you about how this guy ripped me off of $250,000 and lied to my freaking face. I could tell you about how I have a team of lawyers suing people right now that I thought were my best friends that gave me some bogus business structure to try to screw me out of money. These challenges that we face in the business world in America are nothing like what you guys have going on in Ukraine right now. Hey, man, we're all the United States. We just watch this. We don't really know. Some of us know some Russians. Some of us know some Ukrainians that work here, that happen to live in the United States. But a lot of times they're a generation removed themselves. So they're just going by stories that they heard. We don't have a true understanding of what's going on there, other than we want you guys to win. That's about all we know. So nothing I could tell you guys could really compare to that. I hope that you guys, is Ukrainian considered a capitalist society? Russia is communist. Is Ukraine communist?
No, 100%.
Okay.
We want to be a part of a European Union. There are some old people in Ukraine who had this old mindset, but the youth, they are inspired by the US entrepreneurs, European entrepreneurs, by modern influencers. So we are all trying to do business right and to make our economy grow.
Good. Yeah.
So thank you, John, for all your words, for your support, and for words for Ukraine. And I'll invite you to visit Ukraine once we win in this war.
There you go.
We will make a lunch with our listeners, and they will tell you like how they managed to survive using your tips. Maybe some launch an insurance company during the war, and then this is a pretty, I think, profitable business will be here, because the life insurance right now is very important in Ukraine. And
they do this. There's a movie with Jonah Hill. It's a true story. It's called War Dogs, WAR Dogs. It'll show you that there's opportunities to become millionaires during wartime. It might not apply exactly to Ukraine, but it's a really good movie about how entrepreneurs could kind of manipulate the system sometimes when it comes to the government.
Great. John, where can our listeners learn more about you besides this podcast? I know you have a book, a podcast. Yep. Where can they find you?
So 2000% raise 2000, the word percent raise.com. And then also my Instagram and my TikTok is at John Cerasani, JohnCerasani. I'm extremely active on Instagram. Feel free to DM me. Let me know you heard me on Volo's podcast, and I'd love to message with you. All right, man. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate this.
Thank you too. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.